and we will be recording this. So yes, so let's go ahead and start. Thank you, Doug.
Can you guys see the screen okay?
It's black screen. Oh, there you go.
You can see it now. Okay. Okay, good. We're going to start a little bit today. What we're going to talk about was real estate investing out of state. And just to tell you a little bit about my background, I started as a realtor in the 80s, and then I sold escrow, and I've been in title for 30 years. But I've also met a lot of people who have moved to different states and talked me into buying properties in other states. And at first I was a little nervous about it, but then they taught me how to do it, and it's been working out really, really well for me. So I'm going to share the things that I just learned from people that were more experienced than me in doing it. And I can show you what, some of the things I did that didn't work out so good, and then, but mostly why I did it and why I think it's a good idea. So real estate investing out of state, as a rule of thumb, in most cases, when investing outside California, the following is true. There's better cash flow on your investment. There's lower property taxes. The landlord-tenant laws are more friendly to property owners. One of the reasons why I moved some of my money out of, I had some properties in LA City, and it was getting very prohibitive with the rules and registering and the different inspections that I had to go through. So I decided to move that property, that money out of state because of the landlord-tenant laws in that particular area. And so we'll talk about property managers and things a little bit later. Choosing a market to invest in. You can do some research, and we're going to show you how to do that a little bit later on a website called Bricadia. But there's a lot of information on there, and it's still really important. I don't try to figure that out on my own. I still use a realtor in the area. So you guys would talk to Brenda or Vivian and find out, does this work for me? Is there going to be, am I going to be comfortable in this? They're going to be able to help you with that and pick the agents out in the other areas because of their ability to work with other Keller Williams agents throughout the country. So one thing I like to do is I like to see the research, but I also get realtors to help me with it. Do you have someone in the area that you know? So that's the first thing that I would think about if I was going to move out of state. Do I have a friend in that area that can see the property that could help me? If not, that's okay. But if you do, then I would research that market area first to see if it works out. And then what I do is I interview 5 agents and 5 property managers, not because I'm going to use them all, because I want to find out what they're saying about the market. How much do they rent for? How much should I pay? I would ask questions like, when people make offers, are they bidding? They're not overbidding. Are they doing this? Find out kind of what's going on before I purchase out there. Now, Vivian and Brenda can help you with that because they have that core of agents all over, so they can pick 3 or 4 different Keller Williams agents for you in those areas and help you guys with that interview. So that would be really good. And then interview the property manager. So I'd ask them a lot of questions. What are you guys paying? How much you charge? I'd ask them all what they charge, how often they, how they fix properties, what the process is when there's something to fix. I ask them all those questions so I have a good idea. And then I usually would just pick the one that I'm more comfortable with if I don't have a really good referral for that area. And for the most part, I've had pretty good luck, but you have to just be conscious that you may have property management problems with your first property manager out of state. And one of the ways that I kind of fixed that over the years was my process for having things fixed or worked on, or when there's an expense, is I need to see a picture of the broken item. I need to see an estimate. I need to see a picture when it's completed, and then I can pay it after that. So then they know you're watching, which is good with technology now because we didn't have that. 15 years ago, it was harder to do that. You can even make them do, like if it's an air conditioner or something, like it's $8,000 or something, make them FaceTime and show that it doesn't work and watch the gauges and stuff. So it's kind of interesting that you can do things like that now, but that's what I did. But that's one of the things that a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to move because I can't drive the property. I'm not going to buy out of state because I can't drive by the property. I can't fix it. But you have to rely on these people. And sometimes that is the hang up that people have. But remember, the first year you can have some little issues like that, fixing the property and doing some things like that. Then the other thing I do is what are the property types that I want to buy in? And there's different property categories. And this is something I learned from a bunch of different people that sell me properties in other states. There's A, B, C, and D property categories. A meaning the best properties, high-end properties, right? Really good schools, all that stuff. B is just your regular neighborhood, a lot of owner occupancy. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Basically single family homes, that kind of stuff. I like to buy 2-unit buildings. I've got a couple 2-unit buildings that I like. So I felt that they weren't a lot more than houses, but I ended up getting a lot more rent. So I've got a couple 2-unit buildings and single family homes. I have not bought condos just because I don't know the HOA, what they're going to do or how it's going to affect, if the rates are going to go up or people aren't going to pay. So I've stayed away from it. It doesn't mean that they're bad investments. It's just that I personally stayed away from them because I like to be in more control. I don't think I have that too much control with the HOAs on properties. Then after that, I'm going to look at what's the job market in that area. Is the entire community dependent on one industry? Is it all mining? Is it all military? Like Austin, Texas is great because it's a lot of military, which means those people are getting paid by the government and they're going to do that. But if they move those bases, that could be hard on a rental market, right? Is it all education? It's everybody working at a particular college. So I try to find an area that has multiple job growths in different types of industries. So maybe they got biotech and medical and government, or maybe they got government and they've got education and another kind of industry going on. But I stay away from markets where everybody's employed into the same type of industry, because they can be affected by changes in technology and all different kinds, changes in government policy, all kinds of things. The other thing to do is I always buy I don't buy in properties that have more than 20% non-owner occupancy. So if I'm buying an area and there's over 20% non-owner occupancy, it's a less of a pride of ownership neighborhood. And I try to be in a neighborhood where I think that the neighbors are going to keep their properties up so it doesn't affect my values, because I'm not there to watch what's going on as much. So that's my rule of thumb that I do. Now, if you want a higher return, if you buy lower grade properties like C's and D's, you'll get a higher return. My son's friend is buying a bunch of C's and D's but he's young and he has a real good tolerance for loss and risk. And so I use these for retirement. So I like to have more of hey, I want to know what the income's going to be. I want to know that I'm not going through renters all the time and turning properties over time. So I don't buy A properties because the return's not well, but I'll buy C+, B, or B+ properties. Okay. The other thing to consider with those kind of properties, and this is what you want to ask the property managers, is what's the break point in the rent in your area where you tend to have a lot more turnover or renter problems. So in this area here, when I show you one in Boise, Idaho, the guy says you have to be over like $1,000 a month. When you get under $1,000 a month and you're in a house, you end up having tenant problems. So there's like little thresholds on prices like that. And that was always a good thing for me to know, because when you look at some of these markets and you see how low some of the prices are compared to what we're used to here, it's really tempting to buy a real cheap property and think you're getting a really good deal. But you have to understand that sometimes buying a real cheap property doesn't end up being cheap in the long run. You end up having more tenants, more turnover, more fixing properties, things like that. Court fees, eviction fees, all those kind of things like that. So that's just an idea of the different categories of properties. Then we talked about the industry a little bit there. Then what I do is I have a couple of my own properties in here that you can look at and what they're doing. So see if I can get that on the screen, right? I'm sorry. Should I not use the mouse? It's not wrong. Get it all on there. Can you see that okay? So here's a property. This is on Bermuda Place. This is in very close to Huntsville, Alabama, and we'll show you the Berkadia research product on packet on this as well. So I bought this property for $210,000. It rents for $1,600 a month. So you can see what I did is I did the monthly and the annual on the income and the rent, and then I did the expenses and I just put them all in here. One thing to keep in mind in other states is pretty interesting. Like here from Orange County to LA to Riverside to San Bernardino, the property taxes are really kind of the same. They're not really a whole lot different. They're really different in other states from county to county. And you'll see that on my next property. And it's almost $100 more a month cash flow because of the property taxes. So that can sometimes help you to decide what you want to do. So property manager here, after calling all the property managers, it's 10% everywhere you go there. And if you have 10 properties, they'll give you 9%. And I go, that's not that big a break really. So 160, there's the annual expenses. There's HOA on this one is $12 a month, but I don't know what it's for. It's just like for the whole neighborhood or something. They don't cover anything with the house. Insurance and property taxes are good things to look at because certain states like Texas have higher property taxes, and areas like Florida, where they have a lot of weather issues, could have higher insurance. So keep those things in mind when you're looking at properties. The total expense there is $356 a month or $4,282 a year, and then you can see the net income on the property that comes in per year. So that one does not have a loan on the property, and so you'll if you were to add in a loan, whatever the loan payment would be, you'd subtract out from that particular one. This is another one, and this is this is on the other side of town in Huntsville called Athens. And it's a little farther out, but that's all the growth is going that way. So it's been stronger rental market there. This one here, I paid a little more for. It's like $220, but you can see it rents for $1,600. It's pretty much the same. Everything's pretty much the same here, except for when you get to the taxes. Look at the property taxes here, $347 a month versus $1,034 a month. So those are some things that you need to think about, just not getting excited about how low prices are and stuff sometimes in certain areas, or how easy they are to afford for you. And then you can see the total return here. Now, on the next property, this is the Boise, Idaho property. Oops, okay, and you can see this is a duplex. This one I paid $168 for, but that was 2012, so it's a long time ago. And you can see the rent here and the annual rent, the income and the annual income, and the property management, the water, the sewer, and the loan payment. Remember, in Alabama, it was interesting. We didn't have water, we didn't have sewer, and we don't have gardening, no landscaping. That's why I liked Alabama, because the tenant pays everything. All you pay is the taxes, the insurance, and the property manager. So when you're looking through different areas, these are the kind of questions you want to ask, because those things can add up and change your monthly bottom cash flow. So that's the thing that's different. Like when we're buying here, we think what do people usually pay for? What do renters pay for? So it's different in every state. So those are things to look at. Here's my payment here for $900 a month on this property. There's a total expense and the total income per year. So you see, you can buy a property for a couple $100,000. You can even have a loan on it. For this one has a loan for like $70,000 or $80,000 on it. But you can still make quite a good income off these properties. And I thought when I bought them, I better rush and try to pay them off so I can retire or something, I was thinking. But the rents have gone up over the last 10 years, and I almost don't need to pay them off. So I'm just going to let them sit and ride and wait till I get to where, if there's some point in 5 or 10 years or something where I say, hey, now I want to retire, then I can figure out, do I have enough money to pay them off? How much income I get in, stuff like that. So that was surprising to me. I thought I had to rush and pay them off right away. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the market, how to figure out what's going on the market. These are general trends, but if we look at here, it's Huntsville. So if you go to Bricadia.com, you can put in large metropolitan areas. You can't put in Long Beach, and you can't put in Irvine, but you can put in Orange County, I think, or you can put in Los Angeles County, and they'll come up this way. So this is Huntsville, which is these properties here are probably about 5 to 15 miles away from the main center of town there. The occupancy rate is 95%. See how it's real high occupancy there? The effective rent's $1,000. Now this is based on apartments. If you look there, they don't have one for single family homes. So apartments are less. Houses are more 14 to 1,800. And look at the rent share of wallet. That just means how much rent are they paying out of the money they're making. So you can see they're not paying that. They're only paying 20% of what they're, people here that buy a house or pay rent here, they're like 40, 45, 50%. So you can see they have a lot of extra income here. So they don't have to, it's not a lot of pressure. I kind of like that, because it makes me think that people aren't going to jump out real quick or feel financially pressured to leave. And there's a little chart over here for the occupancy rate and the effective rent there as well too. Then you come down, there's a little bit more information, just employment. You can see what employment's doing. Is it going up? Is it going down? And then the price per unit. Is the price per unit going up? Is it going down? I don't get so concerned about, like when you buy here in California, the appreciation is a big part of it, right? But it's also so expensive to purchase. When you buy out of state, the appreciation, you don't factor in appreciation as much as you do monthly return, stability of market. You want a real stable market that's going to return all the time, a certain cash flow that you can count on, versus trying to make all the money on appreciation. So here's employment. Employment's up. Unemployment, it looks like it's up, but it's a very low amount. There's the actual household income, and here's a price per unit. So those are for apartments. But it gives you an idea of what's going on in the market. So that I can see, while this market's really, it's really level, or it's really moving up fast. And then I can ask questions to the realtor or the people in the area. Why is it changing? What's happening? In this market, they're pulling in jobs from all over the country because they are lowering all the business taxes for all the businesses to come there. So they're really trying to get businesses to come to their market, and they've got a lot of jobs coming there. One thing there's so many jobs coming there that people rent my property and they got transferred. And one of them said they had to go back because they missed their parents, they missed their friends, and they moved back. So they moved right out right away. And then the next people came in and they bought a house right away because they're all transferring in. So it's a little different than I'm used to with my properties in other markets, but it's good because there's always a lot of new people coming in, and they're always they're high paying jobs. They're all like they're all college degree type jobs. So it's a really good market, and that's why I picked that. Boise, Idaho, I wasn't doing all this research at that particular point. That was just a friend of mine had a property. I thought it was a good deal and I bought it, and I didn't do any research, but I had a really good agent and he was the property manager. And so why it's good to have a good agent and a good property manager. If the property manager calls you up, like they called me the one in Boise the other day, and they said, you need 2 new garage doors and they're $2,000 each. And I thought, well, I don't know, is that the right price? So I call the realtor, hey, what's the price? And then I get oh yeah, that's what Wargar's charged too. So I kind of know it's a pretty good price.
I have a question, Doug.
Yes.
Stop you. Okay, just because I know that my clients and Vivon, aka Vivian, her clients too, are curious about what, I don't think I saw your interest rate that you have on these loans, because I'm assuming your interest is a lot better than what we currently are looking at, right?
Right. Well, so on some of these properties, I bought with an IRA, which I'll talk to you about at the very end. So some of them are cash, but
Awesome.
the interest rate that I got on this particular one is an adjustable. So I thought I was going to pay it off, but I didn't. So this one here is like 8% because it's an adjustable, and it adjusted up, and it's been adjusting up for a long time. But the rents have gone up so much faster than the payment that it hasn't really bothered me that much. So I bought that one on adjustable because at the time I wasn't able to get a fixed rate on that particular property. Now the other one that we have that we showed you with the payment above let's see, it was in there's the Boise. I've got another one in Alabama. There's a loan on it, and that one is in the 6s too, because I just got it. I got it at the end of 2021.
Like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2021 when I refied it. So it was actually a little bit, but these are not owner occupied loans, right? So they're even they're a percentage or two higher than. So if the rates then were 5%, I got 6.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes I haven't been. If you understand the adjustable mortgages and the property, then sometimes they're not bad, but you have to understand them and know what the cap rates and how fast they can go up and stuff like that. This one here, look at Boise, Idaho, occupancy rate 97%, rent is up. We had a tenant just move out who was paying 13 something, and the next we'll put it back on the market for 1750. You can do that there. You can't do that here. You can't raise it that. You can if you have a new tenant here, right? But you can't do it with the same tenant. So look at the rent share. It's more. It's a little bit more. But see, people that live here, they have so much more pressure to make the payments on those things. So that's Boise, Idaho. You can see the employment change there from the year. So this is really good stuff to get a basic idea. Is this market moving up? Is it moving down? What are the industries? And there's a lot of research you can do on here. Here's price per unit, but again, these were for apartments, if you remember. So you can see what the price per unit was on those. Here's Austin, Texas. I saw a gentleman do a presentation in Austin, Texas, and he was real high on it because it was very military based. So there's lots of military bases, and his renters get paid by the government. They pay the rent. He never has any issues. So I thought I'd put this one here too because it's different. I haven't purchased that way, but I thought I would show you guys a different way of looking at it at a market. If you look here too with this particular one, see if I can find, look at the price per unit, how much higher it is, right? 180 versus, right, or 177. You can see the cap rate, 4.8, 4.3. The cap rates on the other, the properties in Boise were in the 5s, and the cap rates in my Alabama properties were in the 6s. So they're a little bit higher. Brenda, what is the cap rate here? Do you know what that would be?
What investors are looking at?
Yeah, so if investors are looking at a property, what are the cap rates they're seeing in our area now? Are they like in the threes?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even find anything, but yeah, they're lucky if we get anything in the threes.
I was
Right,
gonna
so-
say like 0 right now. I mean, really,
Yeah.
like we're at 1% too. I don't think, yeah, we would get lucky to get 3, I think.
Right. So the return is great out of state. And it's just a matter of, just take your time. I think one of the things that the biggest problem people make when they buy out of state is they'll see how low a price is. Think, oh, I can afford that, no problem. And they just buy it. And it's better to wait and be patient and make yourself comfortable. And understand what the pitfalls could be. Interview multiple property managers, and just understand you could have problems with the property manager the first year. It's normal, it's natural. But you work through it and you get a good one, you get a good working relationship with them, and it's fine. I've even had on my Boise, Idaho property, I didn't like the property management company, so I called the manager. I said, look, I'm having problems. They gave me a different person that worked there, and it's been fantastic. So, we just work, some people work different together. So, so there's that. And then also one of the ways that I bought some of my properties was a 401k. So if anyone here has had, worked at a different company where you've rolled out an IRA, or if you're self-employed and you have what's called a SEP IRA, a lot of realtors have SEP IRAs they can set up, or people that own their own businesses. And that money in there, you may not know how to use it in the stock market, or you may want to buy property. So if you wanted to buy property, you could use your self-directed IRA, and you could use a company like AccuPlan, and instead of putting your money in stocks, you can put it in real estate. So the basic idea is you can diversify your portfolio. So if you had, 400,000 in an IRA, and you thought, well, maybe I could put 200 in a house and buy a house in Alabama, or something like that, or a different market, and have half of my retirement in stocks, but still have half in real estate. Because the thing about real estate is it pays every single month on, mostly it does. I mean, there's a vacancy factor, but it's a good way to diversify your portfolio if you have that. And then in summary, the IRAs can hold all types of investments, not just securities, but they can hold houses. You can also do loans. So if you want to lend money out at 8%, 9% to people that want to buy investment properties, you could do that as well too. And that's a whole presentation itself of actually how to do that. But Brenda and myself and Vivian can help you with those things if that's something you guys want to do. Was there any questions on the presentation and purchasing out of state that I could answer for you?
We're gonna look in the chat right now, but I went through and I want to have a couple. So I noticed even on your like profit income, I'm sure on your P&L, do you have more in depth where you use yourself that shows like cost of deferred maintenance over time? Is there a
No,
lot?
you know what? I made these right when I bought the properties. As soon as I rented them, I just made these. And at the end of the year, what my property manager just gives me a report that has everything in there with all the expenses.
Okay.
And I know that like right now there's two kinds of expenses that I think of when you're doing when you have like right now in my Ethan property here in Idaho, I'm doing upgrades to it, right? Because the paint's coming off, to do the garages, because I want to get good renters and high rent. So I'm doing where I want to do the investment, right? The properties in Alabama, I noticed they were about 10 years old when I bought them, so I thought I would soon have problems with air conditioning. One of them I did have to pay for an air conditioner on, so it was like $6,000. So you'd have to figure out, a lot of times the different states have different types of expenses with them. Like in one of the properties in Alabama, even though insurance covered, I got a call, hey, the roof just blew off the garage. And so I'm like, wow, I've never really had that happen before, But so the property managers will tell you, hey, you need to prepare for the different weather for this area. The other thing about Boise, Idaho that's different is that it freezes in the winter. Even though it's not that much snow, it freezes. So if you don't have a gardener come for like $300 and take all the water out of your sprinklers and do something to sprinkler heads, they all break. So the different markets will have different things like that. So those are things you really want to talk to the property manager about. What kind of expenses, or do you think maintenance would be different here than where I'm at? I have, and then you kind of give them an example. That's why I lay this out. Like in Idaho, I pay water, I pay sewer, but and I pay property management. But when I'm in, oh, my loan payment has the taxes in it here too. Sorry about that. That I have that one in there. But that's the PITI. You'll see it there next to the loan payment. But in Alabama, I don't pay the landscaping, and I don't pay the water, and I don't pay electricity and all those things like that. So those are going to be market to market when you do that. And then what I do is at the end of the year, my property manager gets an online system with me. And I like to do with my property manager system where I put money in the account, and I just don't want to be writing checks and doing business. Like, I'd rather have them just take it out of the account and send me back, out of the rents that I get. And then I have a full report at the end of the year with their accounting. And then I just take that report and send it right to my CPA, and he does all of it. And I don't have to do a bunch of accounting or anything.
Great, thank you. I know Picarn, you had a question about what site he uses. It's Berkadia.
Yeah, Berkadia.
Berkadia. So yeah, we can put that back up. Is that subscription? Do you have to pay for that?
You can pay for certain things, but you don't. Like these, I didn't pay for. But remember, I didn't get. I'll try to get back there. Sorry about that. This thing really delayed, so I got to go really slow. Let's see if I can get that back. There we go. On these particular ones, I just downloaded them, but I couldn't get single family market with this. So I think if you want to pay, you can get more. Okay. But I just was pulling just the general to see what the neighborhood's doing. Because if you call someone out there that's got a listing, they're going to say it's really great, and it could be, but you just want to make sure, since you're not familiar, what's the market doing? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is the employment all in one area, or is it changing? So it's a pretty good site. There's other sites too that you can use. I used, I think I have at the end of my presentation, is it on here? I don't know if it's on here. We have a website that we give to Vivian as well as
Vaughn, Doug.
Sorry, Vaughn. and Brenda, where they can check properties across the country for you. So you can call them up and say, hey, we've got this property here in LA. We're going to sell it. Maybe we want to do 1031. What properties could we buy in another state? How would that work? They can pull that information up for you in other states and tell you what the property taxes are on that property, what the bedroom bathrooms are, what the loans are on it, stuff like that. And they can help you do that research.
And then I had one more, and I think there was something in the chat, but I know you said that 20% is kind of what you're looking for. Is that something you came up on your own, or is this something that is common for investors to look at?
You mean for non-owner occupancy?
Yes, that's correct. Like,
yeah, I came up with that number by just being in in real title for a long time and having people order farm packages, okay, and just watching the percentage that come up when we do a report, like how many owners there are and how many non-owners, and then just being in those neighborhoods. And so I noticed whenever someone had a farm with over 20% renters in the property, the upkeep of the property was lower.
Okay, so 20% is a sweet spot just from the experience you've had in title. Yeah,
and that's here too. I mean, it's not for every market, but that's what I see here. So I know that if I have more, usually if you look at, like, say 90815, a really general Long Beach normal market, a lot of the same houses are all pretty similar. They're going to all be in the 15s. That'll all be all 15%.
So someone it says, places like Cape Canaveral, Florida attract a lot of short-term renters who are paid government rates for rents, about $4,200 a month right now. Sounds like a lot of money, but vacancy would be intermittent. Do you have any thoughts about these kind of investment properties?
Is it like a vacation rental or just a short-term, like
short-term? So short-term vacation.
Short-term, like maybe like a company's flying them in there to stay there for a year and sending them out or something. The government's bringing the people in for something. Is that what it was?
Short-term renters who are paid government rates for rents.
Oh, okay. So the government is paying them to be there for a while, and they're doing I haven't done any short-term rentals. I just purchased my first property in the mountains to do Airbnb with, which we're doing the work on right now. But that one, I haven't done it yet. My son has one. He's doing really well with it, and I have friends doing very well with them in Joshua Tree and Palm Springs right now. And it's just a different way of managing. So there's a different kind of manager involved, and I would think what I would do is I would talk to all the people that that already have them. So maybe Brenda and Vivon have people that know about them or they're doing it. And I ask them a lot of questions because I kind of found out that in Joshua Tree, you have to have a pool and you have to have this and you have different things. Otherwise, you don't get as many renters. There's a lot of competition. So you have to understand the competition. The other thing too, for those, you have to understand if there's any city ordinances or county ordinances that only allow a certain amount or make you get a license for that. So you have to be careful about that as well. And then I would do the research online. So the one that I got in the mountains, I'm going online all the time, looking what's available, looking at what I'm buying to try to see if I compete with what's there, then what I'd have to have it rented out for. And then you've got a management fee and cleaning fees and things like that. Some of those, if you do get involved with Airbnb or VRBO, it does cost a little bit more, but the insurance they provide is really, really good in terms of loss due to people in the property.
So I'm glad you brought that. I think I'm not okay. Why'd you brought that up? We're actually our next will be our next seminar. We'll actually have a property management company that just does short-term rentals who will be speaking on the industry and how to make money and the pitfalls and what to be aware of. So thanks for bringing that up. But yes.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that's a really good idea because it is really way different than what I'm doing.
Okay.
It takes a lot more maintenance.
Yeah, it's just nice to hear that what your thoughts are
Right.
on another side. So thank you for that.
Okay. I think I was saying something. Did we cut you off, Shane?
Yeah, so this is like the Cape Canaveral question comes from a little bit of a different place than like vacation rentals like Airbnb and stuff. So there's the launch pad out there in Cape Canaveral. So a lot of like research industries and stuff will be loading up, spacecraft onto their rockets there for launches. And they often have to be stationed in Florida for 6 months or 12 months or something. And we found out that sort of regardless of the quality of the home that's there, they're all renting for the same rate of $4,200 because they know that is what the government pays us to relocate with.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great thing to do. The only thing is if the government stops doing that or something, will your income go away and can you still rent the property in a different way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems kind of volatile and a little stressful, if you ask me.
Yeah, but I have friends that do the Airbnb, and to me, it seems a little more volatile and stressful too. But they love it and they're used to it, and they've gotten used to it. So if you guys get on that next class, is it next month? Whether you guys are going to do that? That would be great because knowing knowing those ins and outs of that and getting comfortable with it, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but just so you know what to watch out for, I think is really important.
Great. Anyone else for questions? All right. Doug, thank you so much.
Oh, I have another question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
Have you ever experienced developing land for the purposes of making rentals, like buying a large plot and dicing it up into smaller plots and putting like manufactured homes on them?
No, but I have clients that have done that, and it can be very profitable. It's a little bit different of a animal when you're purchasing lots of properties. You have to know if they're entitled or not, which means you have electricity and all those kind of things like that. So there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of when you're before you buy the land. And so I'm sure what area are you looking at for that? Is that local?
Well, it's more of just a general statement because you're talking about something you said earlier, talked about that the growth of the city was reaching out into a certain area. And so you were attracted to that area. And so I was just kind of fantasizing about getting ahead of the expansion, buying some land.
Right. Well, that's what was happening in Alabama is those are all farmers for 200 years. And there's so much demand now, all the farmers are selling their properties and it's builders that are mostly building there. So certain areas are going to be good for manufactured homes and certain areas aren't. I don't think you would do well with manufactured homes there in particular because that people are buying brand new nice homes and they're not that expensive. But but there are areas that are great for that. I mean, those some do really well in the Inland Empire. They do great in they're actually a really good way to make money. They make a lot of return. So it's just knowing where to, where that kind of property wants. But when you develop, you have to understand there's holding costs. So you're going to buy that land, you have to hold it for a year or two before that's developed. You need to get the permit process done, the due diligence process done.
Oh, yeah.
You have to get the entitlements done, meaning you have to have fire department and electrical, and you've got to get the sewer and all that hooked up from the city. And then you've got, then you have an engineer and a surveyor draw it up and split the properties up. So there's a lot of upfront costs and fees, and there's a lot of time involved. So if you've not done it before, then it's probably not something you should do without either experience or maybe finding someone that's done one and learn from them. But there is a lot of upfront costs and a lot of holding times as well.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Doug, I was just talking to somebody about that today, and I've seen school fees like in the $20,000-$30,000, and people are like completely unaware that they're gonna have to pay that when you're building.
Right.
When you're dealing. Yeah.
So there's a lot of due diligence when you buy land. Let's say you're going to make an offer on a piece of land. You need to give yourself 6 months, 8 months for all the due diligence to find out all the stuff like Brenda just said. What are the school fees going to be? Are there going to be bonds? Are there going to be Mellore's? What are they going to charge you for? So a lot of times when new developers come in, they say, we really need a new fire department. So they figure out that if anybody who develops between this year and this year is going to be paying a bond or something for that fire department.
Those are like local laws that would kick in, like city laws?
Yeah, city and county, depending on the city and county.
Okay.
So
The school
before
fees that you're talking about, is that Mellore's?
it's probably a type of Mellore's, but they could be called something else.
Oh, okay.
They could be called different things. Politicians are pretty good about setting them up, and getting them done in different ways. But it's a big process. So you have to be aware of what you're getting into. Usually the due diligence period before you even release your contingencies of figuring out all these things is 6 months, or maybe could be more, depending on what you have to get done. Is the city going to approve what you're building? Can you put manufactured homes there? How many can you put there? If they limit you to how many you can put there, will you make money if you do that? So there's a lot of things to think about when you do developing.
Yeah, because we've been looking at properties out in, I don't know if you're familiar with the area called the High Desert out in Southern California, but the place seems to be exploding. And it's a lot of people putting these pre-manufactured homes on large plots of land and just cutting the land up
Right.
to make smaller little plots. And just curious how that was profitable, because they're selling them for really low amounts of money.
Yeah, I mean, I like to interview those people. I just go out there, like if they're selling the houses, and go out and talk to them and just start asking a lot of questions, because they've definitely got a system down and they know what they're doing, and that will give you a lot of good information on it.
Do you find that these people are pretty generous with their knowledge?
Sometimes they are and sometimes they're not.
I would
But-
feel like you'd want to hold his cards close to the chest, but
Well, you just ask questions, though. You
Yeah.
can look them up and find out, oh, they paid this much for the land, and then there's 4 properties on there. They're selling them all for this much, and kind of get an idea. What does it cost to buy a prefabbed home, have it put out there? If you're doing septic, if there's 4 properties, are you talking like 4 properties on a lot, or like 20?
there was one I can tell he bought a 5-acre plot of land and he put 5 properties on it.
Yeah, because
And
5 properties, you could run, not too many electrical poles and not too much stuff and get it done. But when you get bigger than that, then it's a lot more involved. But yeah, you can make money doing that for sure. I've got a lot of friends that own those. They buy the whole parks after people build them, and they own the whole, like a whole mobile home park.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Just for the sake of time, as I'm watching, I know that we have another wonderful speaker, Michael, who will be coming on next. I think if we'll be able to get any more questions, and I'm sure Doug, you'll be able to answer any more thoroughly individual questions. We'll make sure that we can, if you're, that'd be great. We can make sure that they can, get in contact with you and email you questions or have a talk about that. Thank you so much for the information. I think that was great for us to hear. Thank you for sharing some samples of your properties and what that looks like. And anyway, so Michael, thank you for being here, and take it away.
Thanks,
Hey
Doug.
guys, let me just start the screen share. I got a present PowerPoint to go along with this. Is that working?
Yep.
All right, guys. Mike Miller, happy to be working with Doug Thompson on the Thompson team at WFG National Title. But before I was selling title in a previous life, I was part of a group that bought and sometimes refurbished and then resold foreclosed homes. So basically I was flipping homes. And in my 7 years doing that, I was involved in everything from tracking the properties, bidding at auctions, endorsing cashier's checks, dealing with the occupants, negotiating move-outs, wore a lot of different hats. So if you've ever had any interest in real estate or real estate investment, flipping is probably something you've thought about. So what I'm going to do now is share with you some of what I learned, and we'll be doing that kind of by walking you through the process and giving you a very brief overview of how exactly one might actually go about purchasing a home at the trustee sale auction. So where would we begin? First of all, by recognizing an opportunity. Look, there's always going to be foreclosures brought upon by unfortunate circumstances, loss of job, loss of income, death in the family, things of that nature. But when there's going to be a real opportunity is during an economic downturn. When I started with my group, we were in the midst of what they now call the Great Recession. And we saw that a lot of other people saw that opportunity too and jumped in, and flipping kind of became a thing to do at the time. So by definition, we're currently in a recession again. So if things continue on as they are during times of recession, generally real estate prices drop. And right now we all have a lot of equity in our homes. We're all blessed with that. But if this trend continues, then eventually, you know, we won't have that equity in our home, and there could be that opportunity. You know, I tell people this all the time. When I was buying the homes, I would say almost every time I encountered the owners, it wasn't necessarily that they couldn't afford to pay the mortgage anymore. It was what we termed a strategic default. And that was just that it was a bad asset to them. They were underwater, over leveraged, and they made the conscious decision that I don't want to pay this loan anymore, you know, when the house isn't worth what I owe on it. So it would take real estate prices to drop a lot for I think for anything to even come close to what we saw in 2008, 2009. But that's, like I said, that's when the real opportunity is there, is when there's an inventory of financially distressed homes. Okay, so let's say you're interested and you do want to track and possibly bid on at a foreclosure auction. You decide you want to do this, but how would you find the properties? How do you identify which homes are going to sell that you might be interested in? NODs, notice of default. That's when someone gets behind on their mortgage and the bank can't find a remedy. The first step in the legal foreclosure is the filing of and recording of the notice of default. And that's something that Brenda and Bhavon, their team, can probably get for you. There are data sites or subscription services that collect and organize this information, but they're not inexpensive. That's the best way to put it. So for anybody interested in this is where, I would say utilize Brenda here, utilize her team. As it says on the screen, if the NOD is not cured, if the loan is not brought current in 90 days, then a notice of sale will be recorded. And this is public information, just like the notice of default is, very public information, so much so, and this goes back way back before there were any data sites. It's made public by, it's got to be legally compliant by publishing 3 consecutive weeks in the local newspaper that this property has a sale date. So while the notice of sale gives us an actual auction date, I would stipulate to you guys that, and these aren't hard numbers, but in my experience, 95% of the homes scheduled for an auction do not go to sale on that original date. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, so we have a sales date and we have a property we like. And the most important thing is that we do our due diligence. And we got to do some research on what it is we're thinking about buying. So the first and last thing I did when we were considering our house and right before I went to auction was call a title company and call customer service. So WFG can do this for you. We have all this information, and what title would do is they would run the property address that you're interested in and also run the name of the owners of that property. And what you're looking for are any kind of title issues. Things listed on here, the most important, one of the most important is definitely the loan position. Generally speaking, you want to be in first position. You want to make sure you're buying a first. Now, you can buy a second, and it's actually, cost efficient sometimes to buy the second, but you do become responsible for the first. So that's certainly something you want to keep in mind. Another thing is outstanding property taxes. Those do need to be paid. So if someone's behind on their taxes, just keep in mind, those are going to need to be paid. Any liens against the property, most will be wiped out when the first is foreclosing, but certainly if you were to consider buying a trustee sale auction, you need to familiarize yourself with the different kinds of liens and what may or may not be impeding your profit margin. So income tax liens, IRS liens, that's a whole nother animal. Not generally a big deal unless someone's IRS lien is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the IRS may seize the property, repay you, and look to get their money back by selling the property. So it's very rare, though. My understanding is that's very, very rare. A lis pendens, of course, that is a pending lawsuit, and that would show up as being recorded on the property. And that could be, when we were doing it, we saw a lot of lis pendences, a lot of lawsuits between the homeowner being foreclosed on and the bank. There was a lot of fighting about that. And a lis pendens could also be maybe if there's an HOA, that could be someone in the HOA suing the HOA over something, or the HOA suing them. So that's something to keep in mind that could impede your resale if there's a lis pendens on the property. The last one on there is an important one, and that's the drive-by. You definitely want to drive by the property and make sure it's in the condition that you thought it was in when you first started researching it. And if nothing else, you want to make sure that it's at least still there. So you've done that, you've done your due diligence. Oh, did you have a
Sorry.
question?
No, question just to point out for the folks who may not understand, because Brenda and I get this question a lot, or people are surprised when they hear it, is to understand that they do not get to, walk in the property, take their time to view it. It's not a normal, let's go look at this home and see what we're buying. I mean, you are, a lot of times, depending on the sell date and when you're recognized, is you're buying it sometimes sight unseen,
Certainly.
with risky. And at the very most, you're only getting a drive-by. So just to be clear that you will not have access to see the property or do your due diligence in an inspection, correct?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, there every once in a while, one might be listed for a short sale and you could get in there and take it. That's super rare though. You drive by, if you're really adventurous, you might get out and peek through the windows. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we used to have to do just to get a better idea of what was going on in the property. But it's very true. It is sight unseen. You can look on an old listing, but before it's buyer beware. It's risky. So
But you
definitely
want to try to figure out if it's occupied or not,
that's huge. I was going to get to
especially
that.
right now.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely if someone had figured out that a property was vacant, someone had peeked through the windows, if a few, there's other ways to notice that, like a lot of mail in the mailbox, grass being overgrown and things of that nature. They definitely go for a premium at the auction, because an expense I'm going to get to is dealing with removing the occupants. That can be an expense for sure. So and we're getting there right now with determining value. And this is where 100% you need to team up with Brenda, Vivon, or Vivian as some call her. And you definitely need someone who's experienced, knows the area, and can help you figure all this out. Because, and what they're going to help you with, obviously, is comparable sales. And you're not just looking at what you're going to pay for, but for the sake of most of this argument, there's different things you could buy a house for at trustee sale, but we're mostly gonna, let's say we're gonna flip it. So there's all kinds of costs and expenses you need to figure out, and what you want to do is figure out, what do you think the house is going to be worth at the end, and then you're going to have to work backwards. So things to keep in mind, obviously, the desired profit, the return on investment you're seeking. I would say, generally speaking, professional flippers they shoot for 10%. They want to make 10% on their money. So things to keep in mind, and leave yourself a pad and build a margin and know how much you're willing to pay at the auction. You got to estimate your rehab and upgrade costs, and that can be difficult when just doing a drive-by or looking at old photos on an expired MLS listing or something. So, these are some of the risks involved. But you also need to consider holding costs. Every day you own the house is going to cost you money in some capacity, whether that be, again, if there's an HOA, taxes, your insurance. Every day you're kind of, spending money, losing money every day that you hold the house. So you got to keep that in mind too, when considering how long you think your rehab is going to take and all that kind of stuff. So again, like I said, you're going to want to kind of determine what you want to sell it for, and then work backwards to what you can pay for it. And that's a real estate agent teaming up with someone who can help you figure all that out is super key. I mean, they're going to be invaluable. So. Okay, cash is king, right? We've heard this forever. And when it comes to the trustee sale auctions, I mean, it's 100%, because everything we're talking about here is all based upon the idea that you can buy this property with cash. And that's the advantage the buyers at the auction have. Most of us are more comfortable or more suited to put 20% down on a house and finance the rest. Well, a lot of us don't have $800,000 or more laying around where we can just show up to an auction. But that day, if you go to an auction, if you're going to buy at a trustee sale auction, you are expected to pay in full that day. So you need to have cashier's checks available up to the amount that you're think you want to spend or willing to spend. And some things to keep in mind on that is that, say you, let me give you a scenario. Say you're going to bid on a house and you buy it for $800,000, but you only brought a cashier's check for $1 million. I know these dollar amounts seem hefty, but I mean, these are realistic numbers with today's real estate prices. So you give them $100,000 cashier's check, they give you a receipt that day, and you're out $200,000 that you overpaid. And they just mail that to you basically at their convenience. And I would say, you know, my experience, that would generally be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. So experienced people at the auction, especially people who want to be able to utilize all their funds, would come up with different increments of cashier's checks to try to add up as close as they could to whatever the purchase price might be, so that they weren't overspending and out that extra money. So just a little side note to keep in mind on something like that. But again, remember, all this is predicated on the fact that you either have the cash or you have raised the cash to make these purchases that day.
Michael,
Yeah.
can I add something? So Art had this situation, my significant other. He went to an auction and he did exactly what you're saying. He took cashier's checks in different amounts. So he did like 500,000 and then like $50,000 increments after that. And he was super excited because he won, right? So he's like excited, yay, congratulations, you won the auction. And so now he's like, great, now I own a property in Palm Desert. Well, it wasn't that easy. So apparently, well, you have to wait, right, for the confirmation. But he's, you know, he gets a call from the person and they're like, yes, no problem. It'll be confirmed tomorrow. We'll mail everything out, you know, wait until tomorrow, but it's pretty much a done deal, like 99.9%. Well, somebody challenged it. One of the investors came back and said, oh, I didn't know about the sale, even though it was public knowledge, and challenged the auction, and it was taken away from Art. So the house that he bought, that he thought he bought, he didn't buy. So
Rescinded is usually what they call that. And that does happen. I've bought 10 to 15 properties that have been rescinded, and that's very frustrating, especially because the same thing I'm talking about, where you overpay and you're out the $200,000 or the $10,000, whatever it was, you could be out $1 million or such. And rescissions are, I think, generally speaking, they're rare, but for a while there, they were almost commonplace. And that was just because at the time, there were just so many properties, the banks were so over inundated, and a rescission usually comes because, like kind of what you had said, someone was left out of the loop and kind of challenged it. But generally, it's really a last minute bankruptcy filing. And it is illegal to foreclose to do the trustee sale if there was a bankruptcy filed. So people, they will wait till the very last minute, do that. Generally, the auctioneer has up to the date information, but sometimes they haven't been given that information. Even if they weren't given the information, the sale is void and it will be rescinded. So that does happen. Again, another frustrating element of it is all this stuff's very last minute and very chaotic. So now, you know, okay, we got the money, and I'm kind of going in order here. And here's the auction. This is an actual picture I took at the auction. This is on my cell phone, and this is at the court, or at the courthouse steps, is what is the term a lot of people use. And this is actually in Orange County at the Santa Ana courthouse, and it's not the steps, but it is the hallway leading into the building. And if you see the man to our right with the green hat and the members only jacket, that is the auctioneer. So he's not wearing a nice suit. He's not, you know, they haven't handed us out placards, and he doesn't have a gavel, and he doesn't talk that fast either. He's just carrying a computer, and he, like I said, he's kind of getting the information last minute. He has a schedule of properties that are supposed to go to sale that day. However, a lot of them end up getting postponed, like I mentioned very early on. So it's all very last minute. You see quite a crowd has gathered. This is while people are walking into court for all kinds of issues, DUIs and such. This is, you know, a civil court. And so people are walking back and forth. The main auction, is at noon every day. And so, you know, it's lunchtime, people are coming in and out. I think most of the people in this crowd are probably some of the regulars and actually are interested in a property there, but there'll be an auction going on and someone will just walk right out of court or right on their way to court and just walk right in the middle and start and just go, what is going on? What are you guys doing? It's just, you couldn't imagine that, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, multi-million-dollar transactions sometimes, in some cases, are happening in such a casual manner. It's very bizarre. At the same time, it's actually a lot of fun. It's interesting. It was one of my favorite parts of the gig, was actually going to the auction myself and you know, and being a part of kind of, like I said, this chaos. And most of the people there, most of the bidders will also be on the phone receiving information last minute. Hey, how far can we push this? Someone on the other end on a computer continually comping, looking at new comps, and they're just working it till the end. And it's just a crazy thing to be a part of. And towards the end, I'll just say towards the end, a new company, and they're a big company now, auction.com, came in and they took over a lot of the trustee sale auctions, and they made it more like what we would, you know, consider a classic auction, what we think of. They gave you a number, you held it up. They did have auctioneers that spoke like professional auctioneers, you know, that whole thing. And so that changed towards the end of my run there, and it was a different experience, and it brought even more people to it because it was a comfortable environment. It was in a hotel. There were chairs. They had you know, they had a continental breakfast type spread for us. So it was a lot different than just standing out for hours like we used to do, honestly, for hours, sometimes in the rain, waiting for a property to get cleared to go to auction. So that's, like I said, I'm just giving you an idea of how the auctions are. And again, it's slowed down. It's probably less chaotic now, but it was something to behold and see if you'd never seen one. It really was.
Mike, really quick, let me hop on. I know there are a few people that may need to hop off. Just want to let everyone know, if you do, that's fine. We will be sending out the slide you know, of the presentation and also the video to everyone who is logged on today. So if you have to go, just know we will also be following up and sending a copy of this recording and the slideshow. So, all right, thanks, Mike. Just wanted to let everyone know.
Yeah, no problem. I'll try to get through these last ones quickly. All right, say we bought the property. We talked about, like, Brenda came in and we talked a little bit about filling out the receipt. They just mail you they just give you a receipt that day, mail you back your money and a deed. You got to go record that. But, you know, I didn't wait to get the deed recorded. I started immediately, basically the day of the auction. I'd go over to the property and try to figure out who's there, because time is, you know, time is of the essence, and money is time when it comes to something like this. So, you want to go, you go to the house and basically you just knock on the door and hope you can figure out. They don't tell you, I mean, you know the owner's names, but you don't know who's living there. You don't know what's going on there. So you want to knock on the door and just try to figure it out. And you know, everybody that answers the door has a different attitude with you. So it's very interesting in that capacity. But as said here, you want to identify the occupants, because there's different rules as far as eviction for owners, tenants, and then, you know, you might even have someone there that just moved into a vacant property or something like that, squatters. So definitely the real estate law, and especially this eviction law, as we know in California, is really leaning towards protecting any tenants. So definitely, before doing any of this stuff, you would, if you're not familiar with it, I would definitely say consult a real estate attorney before you do much. You know, I was experienced enough with it that we had one working with us full time, and you know, I tried not to get him involved until the last minute. But you would serve a 3-day notice, and that's all the owners get after a foreclosure to move out. And you want to serve that to them regardless if you're going to try to enforce it, just to get the clock starting in case a legal eviction is going to be necessary. So, but I would say that most, again, I don't, almost everybody I met, I said, hey, we don't expect you to be out of here in 3 days. Some people just complied and left. It was very rare at the time, though. People were getting a lot of information from attorneys about staying in their house and, how to drag that out. So what you generally want to do is negotiate a move out and have a, come to terms with them so that they'll leave amicably. That's ideal for everyone. And, the term used is cash for keys, and people know about that and they'll ask for it before I offer it. And, that helps them facilitate a move, and, it might be a couple $1,000s, and that's always something you got to keep in mind when, like I said, building your pad and think about your margin and your profits. If someone won't agree to cash for keys, if someone is being difficult, then you will have to hire an attorney. And I try to tell people, hey, I'd rather give this money to you than an attorney. It's going to cost me at least $5,000 to hire the attorney. I can give you that, and you can stay a few weeks. We'll figure that out. So, but if you need to hire an attorney, you might end up going to court, and and I've had to testify in court many times about property value and rental value and all that kind of stuff. So okay, everything I've been talking about is from my experience, and some of that's dated. This is a new law that's kind of a hiccup for buying at trustee sale auctions. This is brand new as of 2021, I believe. And as you can see, they call it homes for homeowners, not corporations. And basically the idea of it, I'll try to get through it briefly. You can look it up if you have more interest in it, is that after purchasing of, after a home goes to sale, trustee sale auction, there's a new owner. Unless you're buying it to own or occupy it, you're going to live there. You have to prove this to someone. I'm not exactly sure who, but I guess if someone challenges a sale, if you're doing what we were doing, flipping it, or if you're a big corporation, you're going to hold it, then for 45 days, there's now a period that nonprofits, someone who's going to own or occupy, or I think another caveat was like if they were tenants in the home, are allowed to match the bid at the auction. They're either allowed to overpay or match, and they actually take precedence, and you can lose out on the house you want. So this is huge, it's an advantage for some people maybe buying a foreclosure, that don't have time to go to the auctions, and they're not doing this as a full-time profession. So it is an advantage for some people, but for people doing it professionally or someone trying to do a quick flip, wow, you now have 45 days attached to your holding time immediately. So that's a big new law, and I think it's going to deter some people actually from wanting to get involved in flipping. All right. Hey, the person moved out, maybe they were moved out kicking and screaming with the sheriff pulling them out. Maybe they, gave you a big hug on the way out. Regardless, I don't care how they left. I suggest you rekey it. It's a really inexpensive thing to do, and rekey all the doors and everything in the house, because I've seen it happen, and we don't know who did they give a key to. Yeah, maybe they left, you gave them $5,000 and they left and they're happy with you and they like you. Maybe there's an ex-girlfriend that has a key. Maybe grandma has a key. Maybe somebody forgot something and went, oh, I'll just go back and get it. I have a key. So it's just, again, just something that you 100% just rekey the home. Earlier, you estimated the rehab. Like Vivon said, you've probably never been in the house. You've probably never actually seen the house. Now you're going to not estimate it, you're going to evaluate it, and you're kind of going to go through those steps all over again and working backwards. What can I, how much can we put in it? What's it going to take? Again, Brenda, Vivon, someone from their team is going to, the market may have changed. How long have you been holding the property? So you're going to have to reassess all that and, do the comps again and see where you're going to be to get to putting it on the market. And that's again where great real estate agent in your corner is going to get you top dollar. And that's, you know, that's where you need Brenda, Vaughn, and the team again. So that's kind of, you know, you're putting it on the market, hoping to sell it top dollar and see what you got. And if, you know, hopefully you made enough money and you can, in a quick enough time, that you can do it again, because that's really how you make the money. That's really how you get the ROI, is turning that money a few times a year.
One thing I wanted to say real quick was, in a lot of this was people buying for investment purposes. They're buying at the sale, they're paying all cash. The homeowners can, if you want to be an owner occupant, you can purchase at a sale with SB, you know, 1079, that you can go and purchase after the bids take. So after the bid's taken place, investors made a bid, they've won the property. You can go outbid them by $1 and buy the property, and you can move into it. And there is some available of getting loans for that too. You'll have to research that. Not all regular lenders do it, but you could get a loan. You could buy that property. You only have 45 days to do it. It's not going to be a cheaper loan. It'll probably be a little more expensive, or you could also pay cash too as an owner occupant. So an owner occupant doesn't have to have a 10 or 20% margin, because they're going to live there. They just have to figure out how much do I want to put in the property. So there are other opportunities for owner occupants as well.
Sure. If I didn't say that clearly, I meant to state that when I was talking about that. It's an advantage and a new advantage for some people. For full-time flippers, big disadvantage. But there's a huge opportunity for someone to get a home at a discounted price now, for sure.
Well,
And then Doug,
go ahead.
Doug, do you know if that rule went into effect where they were saying that if you defaulted and it went to sell and then somebody purchased it, that the original owner would have the opportunity to take it back? Did that go through? You're on mute. Douglas, you're on
The
mute.
real owner can't purchase the property back. A relative can, but it can't be the original person. And an owner occupant can purchase it, and a nonprofit can purchase it as well too. So if you have a couple people that want to go together and purchase a property, they can create a nonprofit, pool their money together, and buy them as well that way too.
That's correct.
It's called a nonprofit. So that would be in terms of trying to provide low income housing or something like that usually.
And do you know if there's a rule, like how many years they have to occupy it? I know like Fannie Mae, when they were doing the Fannie Mae loans, you had to have it for you had to occupy it for like 2 or 3 years before you could sell it, or else you'd get penalized.
I think it's 1 year. I'm on the board of the National Association of Default Professionals, and we were working with this legislation. They were going to add to it. We got part of it stopped, but they have to owner occupy. They're going to check in a year to see if they still are owner occupants. And there have been investors purchasing as owner occupants, which didn't owner occupy. And there's not really a enforcement thing, but they're getting fined. There's not like a law enforcement part of it, but they're getting fined.
Yeah, there's some other strange elements of that bill, as far as if corporations do hold on to it, that they leaving it vacant, they can get fined for, or not taking care of it, they can get fined for. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I have to say thank you, Mike. That was, honestly, to you and Doug, I mean, these, I think, are both two things that Brenda and I get all the time, with our clients, the flipping, like, what is it to flip? How do you find the properties? How do you go to auction? And do I have an opportunity to, which is really interesting that you brought up this new law that went in effect. And then obviously, Doug, like investment properties, the question is, well, I can't afford anything in California. So does it make sense to buy out of California? And what does that look like? So, I mean, this was fantastic, the both of you. Like, we can't thank you enough for the information that you gave. I think that it opens up, more questions and opportunities. I think at the end of the day, it opens up opportunities. Brenda and I are big about informing, our clients, all the opportunities they can have. And obviously we are here for, our clients to help guide them through to making these decisions. So thank you both for, just for putting this information together and sharing. I hope that everyone found it helpful. And again, just one more time, we will be sending out the recording and the slide deck to everyone who had logged on this evening. So you will get a copy of that. And then if you have any questions that Brenda and I cannot answer, you know, I know that Doug and thank you and Mike will be available that if they need to reach out or we'll reach out with those questions and be able to get those answered. So thank you very much for that, the both of you.
Mhm.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It's
We
nice to
appreciate
see
it.
you, ladies.